Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Ash, and this is the space where you and I get to journey this beautiful thing called life together. So pull up a cozy seat, get something yummy to drink, because today we're focusing on how to shift from being in your head to living in your heart. This is something that I talked about in a previous video of mine called Self-Doubt Masked as Fear, which if you're interested in watching it, you can click on here or there, wherever YouTube ends up dropping the video. If you find yourself in a head spiral or a mental spiral, today I'm going to share with you 11 tips, tricks, practices that you can use to drop out of your head and land safely in your heart. Let's get started. When you catch yourself in a head spiral, stop immediately, stop right there. Because what you don't need to be doing is thinking harder. Instead, you need to be stepping back. And something that will help you transition in that is to pause and breathe. So do exactly that. Take 3 deep, long breaths. Inhaling slowly, exhaling slowly, allowing and feeling your lungs expanding with that oxygen and allowing it to release and contract as you exhale. And pay attention to the way that your body feels as you're breathing. This will help you again transition out of your head and get into your physical body, which grounds you and brings you back to where your heart can guide you. So let's take a moment and do it together. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, and letting it all go. Does that make you feel a little bit more relaxed? Now that you're feeling a little bit more connected to your body and maybe the thoughts aren't ruminating so much in your headspace, let's shift into asking your heart and not your head. Your head is really great at analyzing, but your heart knows the truth. It doesn't get caught up in the what ifs or the worst case scenarios. Instead, your brain functions in a state of calm, clarity, and gut instinct, which is something that your brain can't do when it's in this overthinking, overwhelmed state. So here's a simple practice. Place your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and ask the question, what do I feel about this situation? What do I feel about insert whatever it is you're trying to get clarity on? Trust the feeling that comes up. It's your inner wisdom that's guiding you, offering clearness in a way that your mind can't. Your heart isn't swayed by fears or uncertainties. Instead, it's aligned with the truth. It's aligned with what's best for you. And so when you take the time to pause, breathe, and listen, it leads you on the right path for you, showing you the way with ease. Overthinking keeps you stuck, constantly cycling through all the thoughts without actually leading you in any direction or leading you to any real answers. The easiest way to get out of a mental loop is to move your body, whether that's going for a run, jumping on your Peloton, or lifting heavy weights. Just move. The active movement shifts your energy, helping to release the mental clutter that's holding you hostage or in place, unable to move, unable to really think clearly either. It gets you out of your head and into your body, where you can feel more grounded and present. When you move, you're not only letting go of the physical tension that you feel, but you're also creating space in which clarity can enter. Often the answers or the insights you're looking for become perfectly clear once you get everything else out of the way and letting your body do its thing. It's amazing what can happen when you shift the energy, because it also shifts your perspective too. One of spiral thinking's favorite things to do is to play the what if game. And we all know there are endless scenarios or things that could happen in any situation, in anything that we encounter. And it always assumes the worst. Very rarely do I, and I'm sure you can say this too, get into a mental spiral in which all the outcomes are rainbows and butterflies. Instead, these mental spirals pull you into spaces in which these scenarios haven't happened yet, and odds are they probably never will, making you question your worth and your abilities, and probably so many other things too. So my encouragement with this step is, instead of playing the what if the worst possible thing happens game, what if you instead shifted and flipped the script and played what if the best possible thing could happen? When you switch that focus, You go from fear and doubt into endless possibilities, confidence, and encouragement. Your heart thrives on possibility. It wants to big dream and trust that all of the beautiful things will come to pass. By intentionally focusing on what can go right, you not only shift the perspective and your mindset, but you also give yourself permission to dream about the future, to plan for the future with confidence. And the more you practice this, the more you start showing up in your everyday life as a person who believes in your successes and your abilities and how you want your future to play out. And that belief will take you further than you ever thought possible or could even imagine. Big goals have a way of feeling overwhelming. For obvious reasons, they're big goals. And a lot of the times when we feel overwhelmed, that shifts our mindset into a place of doubt and insecurity, making that goal feel almost impossible to achieve. It magnifies the distance between where you are now and where you want to be, making the whole journey feel like it's just too much. It's more than you can handle. But here's the reality. You don't have to tackle everything right now. You don't have to take the step from here all the way to here. In fact, that's probably not even realistic. But what you can do is you can make small, manageable steps to get from here to here. And looking at the little steps, moving in the upward direction, that's how you make things happen. For example, if you have a goal of starting your own business, but you doubt your ability to do that, don't try to plan every little detail in one go. Instead, set aside time to spend maybe just 15 minutes to brainstorm or research or look into outlining a plan. The key to success is one small action at a time. Progress, not perfection. Each tiny step you take helps build momentum, and it quiets that self-doubt that keeps creeping up. Because instead of saying, look at how you failed from going here to here, now you're saying, look at what you achieved by going here to here to here to here. And now we've made it to the top. The next step has to do with perfection, because let's get real. We all hold ourselves to a pretty unrealistic standard. And the easiest way that our mind wants to tell us to stay safe is to say it has to be perfect. Otherwise, it's not worth doing it. Your brain and your energy typically wants you to stay small because it wants to protect you, right? It wants to keep you safe. And in doing so, it creates these kind of ridiculous boundaries and these thought patterns that don't really make sense. And again, perfection is one of the techniques that they use, or that your brain uses to say, oh, if you can't do it right the first time, don't even bother doing it at all. Perfection isn't actually real. And when we constantly chase this idea of perfection, what it actually is doing is it's keeping us paralyzed by making us fear the act of making mistakes or not getting it right. Or even worse, that we aren't enough in some capacity because we can't be perfect. And all of that, my friend, is nonsense. So instead of waiting around for the perfect time, the perfect opportunity, the perfect insert, whatever it is you're telling yourself here, focus on just doing something. Even if it's done sloppily, even if it isn't your best work, just focus on doing one thing. Because once you realize that mistake or that flaw isn't going to kill you or ruin your entire plan, it actually gives you confidence to keep making mistakes. It makes you confident in being uncomfortable. Perfection isn't where growth is. That's where progress is. And when you take imperfect action, you give yourself permission to move forward, to learn, to adapt to your new surroundings, because it's all about building momentum. So let go of all that pressure. Take the first or the next step and watch yourself grow beyond what you ever thought was possible. Another tip for when you find yourself in a space where your mind is racing or you're starting to spiral is to ground yourself by focusing and paying attention to your senses. This is something I often did when I was a chaplain in the hospital when people were they were really struggling. So I would allow them to take a couple deep breaths, but then I would also bring them back to the moment by having them focus on what they could hear, what they could see, taste, touch, and smell. It's a super simple practice, but it really does bring you back to here instead of being here or all over the place like this. Because no matter where you are or what you're doing, you can engage with all of or any of your senses. And that brings you again back to your body, back to your heart, and out of a mental state. These small sensory experiences, like feeling the warmth of your teacup, or I don't know, hearing a plane overhead, or watching a rainbow through a snowstorm. Wouldn't be a snowstorm, it would be a rainstorm, but you get my drift. Paying attention to those little things grounds you. And that's the most important thing when spiraling, is taking all of your attention and all of your energy. In a world that's always moving, stillness becomes a really powerful tool for connecting with your heart and your spirit. We often get so caught up in the going and the doing that we forget how to be. And it's usually, more often than not, in the moments of quiet stillness that the clarity, the intuition, and the insights arrive. When was the last time that you turned off the radio or the podcast or the TV and cooked dinner in silence? When was the last time you took a shower without music? How often throughout your day do you allow for there to be silence and not allow yourself to be constantly inundated with noises? Probably not very often. So I encourage you to take a few minutes of peace, whether that's finding a quiet room or a quiet space in your office or your home, going and gazing out the window, or sneaking a 15-minute break to walk around your office building, or to just get outside and look up at the sun. Not into the sun, just look up toward the sun. Let's not all go blind here. But the key here is to do a little bit of nothing and letting go of the pressure to do something. This space of stillness creates the opportunity for your inner wisdom to start to speak to you. And it may not come initially in the first 15 minutes, but once your body starts to trust that you're giving it time to actually take space, then things will start kind of coming out of nowhere. Sometimes our minds become so cluttered with to-do lists, thoughts, worries, obligations, that it becomes difficult and maybe impossible to hear the quiet voice of our soul. Journaling can be a really incredible trick or habit, not trick, but habit, to clear away that mental fog and reconnect with your truth. Spend a few minutes each day, not necessarily in a journal. You can just do this on a piece of paper too, but just take a few minutes to write down all of your thoughts, all the things that are circling around in your head. And this could be your grocery list. It could be things that you need to get done with work, or it could be emotions that keep popping up and you're not exactly sure why, or you are sure why, but you just need to release them. And as you write these things down, don't attach anything to them. Just write them out to write them out. There's no need right now at this point to analyze why you've been thinking about your Aunt Nora who you haven't seen in 17 years. The thought and the point here is just to empty out as much of your mind as you can. And then once it feels emptied, you can ask the question, what does my heart, my spirit, my soul need right now? This simple question is an invitation to your spirit to speak, for your inner wisdom to come forth, for all the things that you know to be true to finally be spoken aloud. Journaling, well, I guess it is a journey too, but journaling in this way helps you to filter through the noise and tap into the deeper knowing that's within you. It's a really beautiful practice to strengthen the connection with yourself, and it helps you to move through life with more clarity and more trust. Situations, more often than not, when we're unfamiliar with them, can feel very, very overwhelming. And it's very easy for us to fall into the trap of being hard on ourselves when things don't go the way that we think they should, or the way that we had expected. So instead of criticizing the situation, or even worse, yourself, try to extend that space, just some self-compassion, acknowledging that things right now may not be how you want them to be, but that doesn't mean that you're failing. It just gives opportunity and room for improvement. Actually, over the weekend, my partner and I went snowboarding, and I was fortunate enough to go up on the lift with a dad who was with his 2 young daughters. And one of the girls, I think they were newer at skiing, but she was saying how she just isn't good. She doesn't feel like she's any good. And her dad was so sweet and leaned over and said to her, and the best part of that is that means you get to get better. You can only go up from here. And the same is absolutely true for you. That's what self-compassion does. It transitions you from a mindset of frustration and fear into one of not only acceptance, but one of allowing you to approach challenges and uncertainty with a clearer and a more open heart. It reminds you that no matter where you are, you're always doing your best. You're always showing up in the best way that you can. And that might be messy. That's okay. That's part of life. And embracing the mindset helps you to encounter and to embrace any situation with grace. And the last and final tip is always going to be one of my favorites because we all know how much I love to get outside. But that final tip is that connecting with nature. When life starts to feel a little bit out of hand, nature has a really beautiful way of creating opportunities for you to reset. Nature has a way of grounding your internal circuits, your spirit, and bringing you back to a natural rhythm. And whether that's choosing to take a bicycle ride outside or going down near the water that you might live near, or simply stepping outside, like I said earlier, and just putting your face toward the sun and feeling the warmth of its rays. Nature provides the perfect example and a wonderful reminder that there's no rush, that there's no need to overthink, that there's nowhere to be except right there in that present moment, enjoying the beauty that surrounds you. Nature does a great job of reconnecting you with yourself and helping to quiet the noise that surrounds you and that sometimes is within you. Take a moment to see if you can hear the birds or the wind, because the sights, the sounds, and even just the clear air help tremendously in clearing out mental clutter. The voices that are shouting at you from within, the words that traipse across your mind that tell you all the things that aren't true about yourself. Instead, being in nature allows you to breathe more deeply, release and let go of the tension, and to find a sense of calm in the chaos. I hope that you can enjoy either one or all of these practices that I've provided in this little toolkit for when your internal world is getting a little out of hand. When you step out of your head and into your heart, you're stepping into a place and creating an essence of trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your abilities to figure things out, and trust in the process, no matter how messy it can become. The more you practice, the easier it is to step out of your head space and into your heart space. It actually becomes a lot easier to even acknowledge and to notice when you're on mental spirals before you're 30 minutes into them. This practice also makes it a lot easier for you to not only hear, but to trust in and follow through with your inner wisdom, and in turn feel more at peace with yourself and where you are. The next time that a situation has you thinking overwhelmingly or overthinking, you don't need to think harder or longer or more thoroughly. Instead, you need to step back and feel more. Feel more with the physical body, engage more with your emotions, and embrace what's coming up for you. Your heart will always guide you in the right direction. Until next time, I'm holding you in the light.